Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 11, Chapter 24, Text 12. Devanam oka asit svar. What happened? Bhutanam cha bhuvapadam. Martyadinam cha bhur lokaha. Siddhanam tritayat param. Devanam oka asit svar. Bhutanam cha bhuvakpadam. Murtyadinam cha bhur lokaha. Siddhanam tritayat param. Devanam oka asit svar. Bhutanam cha bhuvakpadam. Devanam oka asit svar. Bhutanam cha bhuvakpadam. Martyadinam cha bhur loka. Devanam oka asit svar. Bhutanam cha bhuvakpadam. Martyadinam cha bhur lokaha. Ladies. Devanam oka asit svar. Bhutanam cha bhuvakpadam. Martyadinam cha bhur lokaha. Siddhanam tritayat param. Devanam, of the demigods. Okaha, the home. Asit, became. Swaha, heaven. Bhutanam, of ghostly spirits. Cha, and. Bhuvaha, Bhuvar. Padam, the place. Martya Adinam, of ordinary mortal humans and other beings. Cha, and. Bhulokaha, the planet named Bhur. Siddhanam, the place of those striving for liberation. Tritayat, these three divisions. Param, beyond. Translation. Heaven let's go. Well, we'll read it. Heaven was established as the residence of the demigods, Bhuvarloka as that of the ghostly spirits, and the earth system as the place of human beings and other mortal creatures. Those mystics who strive for liberation are promoted beyond these three divisions. Purport. Planets, such as Indraloka and Chandraloka, are meant for the heavenly enjoyment of the most pious, fruitive workers. The highest four planets, however, Satyaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka, are meant for those who are most perfectly endeavoring for liberation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so inconceivably merciful that he is promoting the most fallen victims of Kali Yuga beyond these four planets and even beyond Vaikuntha to the supreme planet of Lord Krishna in the spiritual sky called Goloka Vrindavan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that heaven is the residence of the demigods, the earth is the residence of human beings, and in between is a temporary residence for both classes of beings, kind of mysterious in-between place. And because there's no purport for text 11, we're going to go back and read text 11. Lord Brahma, the soul of the universe, being endowed with the mode of passion, performed great austerities by my mercy, and thus created the three planetary divisions called Bur, Bhuvar, and Swar, along with their presiding deities. Krishna speaking, and he's giving a nice presentation on, according to the title of the chapter, the philosophy of Sankhya. Of course, Krishna gives a philosophy of Sankhya in Bhagavad Gita also, and this is another. And in the philosophy of Sankhya, embedded within the philosophy of Sankhya is this cosmology, or the structure of the universe. And it's not just the structure, it's how it came to be, because the universe is created and destroyed, which is part of Sankhya, is things come into being XYZ method. They stay for some time, they're withdrawn by a reverse method, and the energy, Prakriti, undergoes states of transformation, but Prakriti is eternal, and sometimes manifest, sometimes not manifest. And the unfolding of that creation is part of the Sankhya system, and no surprise, once the energies unfold, they have some function or utility, and that's being described here. So there are several sections, in addition to those three sections in Bhagavad Gita, that Sankhya are taught, or Sankhya is taught. There's several sections in the Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Canto 3, and again here, where, and of course 5, where cosmology is identified, at least partially, and little by little, some understandings are presented, and that always after repeated in the next version, but there's put them all together and you get a nice picture of at least some structure of the universe. And there's commentary by our acharyas on all of this. So it's in the verse, just going to focus a little bit on what we know less about, and that's what we know more about is Bhuvar Loka and Swarga Loka. I mean, not that we have been there, so we could say all about it, but there's a lot of information about the heavenly realm, the planets of the heavenly realm, the presiding personalities within the heavenly realm, and how those positions change over a period of time with each Manu and so forth and so on. But the one that, at least my experience, the one that we know least about, is spoken about here, and this is this in-between region. In Bhaktisiddhanta's language, in between, a temporary residence for both classes of beings, the earthly class of beings, not just humans, but other species and in the earthly realm, and the heavenly realm, and then the in-between. It's worth mentioning, coming up is what happens above, because it's alluded to in this verse, and above there's 4 more planetary systems, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Brahmaloka, that's 4. And this verse is saying those are places for those who are promoted beyond the first 3, because they have some, not yet complete, but they have some aspiration for liberation. And of course, then there's different definitions or conceptions of what liberation is, but that's coming up, what those different conceptions and experiences of liberation. And certainly that's an important topic in the Bhagavatam. Important topic in spiritual knowledge in general. What's liberation? And of course, how do we get there? So that higher realm is for those aspiring for liberation, and then there's these 3. And in the more mysterious of the 3 is Bhuvarloka. And in the verse itself, Bhutanam cha, Bhuvaha padam. Bhutanam means ghosts and spirits. So the word for word here is ghostly spirits. And same in the translation. Bhuvarloka is that place where there's ghostly spirits. There's a lot of other things going on in that region, but that's what's in the verse. And also, Marchadinam cha Bhur, same, Bhurloka and Bhuvarloka and Svargaloka. So there are persons in Bhurloka, this region, that they aspire for perfection, siddhanam, meaning there's different understandings of what siddhi or siddhas may mean, and some of the siddhas are situated in the Bhuvarloka. We'll go there in just a moment. I don't know if you get curious, I get curious, when there's something that's not spoken so much about, where are there places where it's spoken more about than the places it's not spoken much about? Because all we have here is the planets of spirits, Bhutanam. So there's other entities in that Bhuvarloka region. And here's a nice description. The source, this is some writing by Suhotra Swami, who was really a real good researcher, and I'm just going to read. He's describing this region in between earth and heaven, and very similar to the language of this Bhagavatam verse, or the Bhaktisiddhanta's language. It's called Madhyama Sthana, an in-between region, Madhyama. And he, his research has resulted in an understanding that there are 10 different divisions of entities in that Bhuvarloka region. So it's a region, and there's different. When you look at, cosmology is a nice topic. It's a fascinating topic. So many posters have been created to help give a two-dimensional depiction of what the Bhagavatam is saying about cosmology. And commonly in that Bhuvar Loka region, it doesn't just say ghosts and spirits, it says Rakshasas and Siddhas and many other entities. So he's broken it down into 10. 1, Yakshas. Who are the Yakshas? They're mystical beings. They're not residents of this realm. They're not residents of the heavenly realm, but they're associates of Kuvera. And that's their residence in this Bhuvar Loka region. They're assistants and servants of Kuvera. Now, Kuvera is a special personality in many ways. He has his place in Ramayana, etc., etc., etc. Yakshas, just like Dhruva, went to that place where the Yakshas were. And it wasn't, on this earthly planet. It's because in another region where he, had this issue with the Yakshas. Another, Kinnaras and Kimpurushas. Kinnaras and Kimpurushas. We don't know a whole lot about them, but they have features that are human and animal-like combined. Kinnaras and Kimpurushas. So that's 2 categories so far. Gandharvas. We hear about Gandharvas a lot. They're not denizens of heaven. They may serve the denizens of heaven, but they don't reside in the heavenly realm. And they're said to be particularly good in music and voice, and they're very beautiful. Gandharvas. Very beautiful bodily features. Charanas and Siddhas. There's the Siddhas again. So Prabhupada often speaks about the Siddhas. In Siddha Loka, they can travel anywhere without, a spaceship. And there they go. They Siddha come from Siddha Loka, and they sometimes come here. But they go wherever they like. Then another category is the Apsaras. Those are dancers. Lovely, especially dancing girls. And they associate nicely with the Gandharvas. The singing and dancing go well together. The Charanas and Siddhas, they have mystic powers. Charanas and Siddhas. Then another is the category that this verse speaks about, the ghosts. And the ghosts have different categories of ghosts. Pretas, Pishachas, Bhutaganas, and they have supernatural powers and they have supernatural features, and there's other names about those residents. So I find it interesting that Rakshasas are in the same region as the Siddhas and Gandharvas and Apsaras, and because they have powers beyond human commonly, but not just they eat people, but they have powers. And they can shape-changing powers and other, fantastic powers. It seems to be part of that classification. And they have to have a place to stay. Now, when Rakshasas descend to the earthly plane, it's very problematic. And sometimes they do. And then there's all kinds of descriptions, in Ramayana in particular, where the whole race of Rakshasas kind of wanted to take over the earthly realm. And it was problematic. Big problem. And so, like a nice section of Ramayana is when Ramachandra was in the forest and he went to the ashram of Sharabanga and Sutikshna showed him, thank you very much for coming, see that pile of bones over there, that's the remains of many brahmanas, the bodies of whom were devoured by the Rakshasas, please protect us. And so he took a vow, I'll protect you. In the ISKCON dynasty, we'll give protection to all those who take shelter. And Sita said, they didn't do anything to harm you, and you've taken this vow to kill them, and so why did you do that? And there are two answers. Because the descendants of ISKCON give protection. That the kingdom is the world, and we give protection to everyone, and especially we give protection to those who take shelter, and particularly the brahmanas. So Rakshasas can be problematic, and there's other examples and other examples, in Ramayana in particular, of Rakshasas causing a lot of trouble. But their primary residence is in this in-between region, going back to the language of Bhaktisiddhanta. It's an in-between region for persons who are in between. And then there's persons that are aspiring, which is coming tomorrow, but it's mentioned in the verse, aspiring for liberation, and they may not be there yet, liberation worthy, so there's higher regions for them also. There's not, about those higher regions, there's not a lot in the Bhagavatam. There's a substantial amount described in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, because Gopakumar goes to those places. At least he goes to 3 of those 4 places. And there's a description of the places and what the denizens do in those places. However, all of them are in this category of Marcha Loka, because that's the term that's in the verse. Marcha Loka is a planet or the realm of death. So it's a detail, but at the end of each day of Brahma, there's lots of days in his whole life, at the end of each day there's a partial devastation, and there's sequence to the partial devastation. But the flood that comes covers, first in fire, and then in water, Bhuvar, and Swargalokas. And there are denizens of the next upper planetary, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka. Because of the fire, it gets really hot in those upper regions. And so, although they're not engulfed in water and burnt with the fire of the partial devastation, they go to the upper regions till it cools down. And then they descend, and then again the next day of Brahma, he does his service of restoring the destroyed portion every morning, after his sadhana, of course. So Krishna is giving this picture of cosmology as the Bhagavatam gives. It's one of the topics of the Bhagavatam, the structure of the universe. And it's very interesting, because what's our experience of the universe? The best way, aside from the imperfect ways, the best way is through the message of Scripture. And here is one place where Krishna is giving to Uddhava the depiction of the structure of the universe and the whole of, so many things that are unknown to us or are not knowable except through Scripture. It's really easy. Here's how easy it is. What existed before we existed? Chapter 10, Bhagavad Gita. What existed before you existed? We don't know because it existed before you existed. So Krishna declares it can't be known. But there is a way to know what existed before you existed. That's by revelation from that which existed before you existed. And they can say such and such. And other than the authority of Scripture or the authority of the perfect person who existed before we existed, we can't know. And there are ways of saying perhaps maybe and coming to this and that and the other conclusion. But we'll never know. Next question. Is it possible to know? Other than through the authority this existed before you existed? And the answer is, at least preliminarily, you can know, at least conceptually or theoretically, this is it. And resting upon the authority of the perfect person, Krishna, one can accept this is what existed before I existed. And then it can go the next step. One can undergo purification such that there can be realization of that realm of transcendence that existed and still exists before creation and after, during cosmic manifestation and after annihilation. It exists eternally. So we can know all those things. And one can enter into the experience of all those things. That's a very elevated state, but that's the invitation of the process of purification and awakening of our original consciousness. So all of this, Sankhya, because that's the title of the chapter, it can just remain theoretical, which is just fine. At least authoritatively we can know it's this, it's not that. And there's lots of it's that arising from speculation and so many other things. And the varieties are endless. There's categories of those varieties, but they're endless. And one doesn't have to be confused and bewildered by the endless. One can faithfully hear from the perfect person, Krishna, speaking to the perfect listener, Uddhava, and get very clear picture. Then, of course, comes purification and gradual realization, etc. One last thing. The structure of the Bhagavatam is not linear. It's not chronological either. So one might expect, like an encyclopedia, you go to this part of the encyclopedia and it's got the whole thing. And you go to another part, it's got the whole thing, another part, it's got the whole thing. And the Bhagavatam isn't structured like that. There's some information about this topic over here, some other information that's the same and a little bit more and a little different over there. And so it's really helpful to become knowledgeable in the whole Srimad Bhagavatam to get the big picture. And that's, a lifetime's service. And hearing the big picture, the Bhagavatam's big picture, from persons that are very qualified, because they've heard from authoritative sources, etc., etc. So it's helpful. Just this morning I was listening to a conversation between Allen Ginsberg and Srila Prabhupada. It was the third day of their conversation. They're in Columbus, Ohio, 1969. And the main repeated question that Allen Ginsberg is asking of Prabhupada is, how can Krishna consciousness and even the mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, become something that's not just for an elite set of people, but, truck drivers and common people. And he went on to say, how many years he's been, 6, 7 years, he has been chanting Hare Krishna. And he gave the date, and he gave the month, and stuff like that. And he said, in the past year, I was in Chicago, and I tried to get the audience to connect with Om and Hare Krishna mantra. And he found it's foreign, and that made it, not so acceptable. So he was asking Prabhupada to make a bridge between the ordinary people and that which is transcendental, specifically becoming attracted to the chanting of the holy name and entering into the mystery of spiritual teachings. The Prabhupada answered him 16 different ways, and it took a while because Prabhupada wasn't just like hitting the nail with a hammer and just that. He was giving a big picture. It wasn't linear. And part of the answer that Prabhupada gave was that if a class of intelligent people, and he was calling Allen Ginsberg an intelligent person because he chants Hare Krishna. So it doesn't matter if someone's uneducated truck driver or, a celebrity poet that takes LSD. It doesn't matter. The intelligent person is one who takes shelter of the holy name, and then purification and gradual realization. So just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam's message regularly, as Prabhupada has set up our temples for the devotees to hear regularly, or now it's not just in temples, it's virtually in so many ways, hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam in reading groups and so forth. It's purifying. And then continue with faith. This is devotional practice. And gradually, two things, cleansing and awakening. And the knowledge, just like within the mantras, everything, within Krishna's name, within each one of Krishna's names is everything. And we haven't realized that, most of us probably. But it doesn't change the fact. Everything is within Krishna's name. And by chanting Krishna's name and regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, these two things, cleansing and awakening, or of remembrance of what we have forgotten. So, cosmology is one of those topics that's in the Bhagavatam. It's not chronological, and sometimes different features are displayed. And if one is inquisitive, then one can appreciate both the way the Bhagavatam is structured, and over here it says this, and over there it says that, and over there it says something else. And we can learn, for example, about cosmology or Sankhya and the unfolding of creation and the connection between cause and effect and Krishna's original cause. And from the original cause everything comes. And how does it work? The Sankhya says, this is how it works. Cause and effect, and there's original cause. And it's verifiable, because it's true. Here's the cause, and you wiggle the cause. And when you wiggle the cause, the effect comes. The effect starts to wiggle because the cause wiggled. And then that effect becomes then a cause for the next effect. And then the unfolding of creation, and behind it all is the source of all those energies, and that's Krishna. And so the unfolding of creation happens according to his arrangement and his sanction. And that can be realized. So there's information, but more than information is realization or transformation of consciousness, taking shelter of the original cause. That's why all this is being presented in multiple places in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's to make our Krishna connection more complete. Okay. Let's see if there's some discussion. Interesting section of the Bhagavatam. Yes.
Shamaraj, thank you. This was very interesting. My question is, talk about ghosts. How do ghosts advance in Krishna consciousness?
How what?
How do ghosts.
How does one become a ghost?
No. How do they advance in Krishna consciousness?
How are ghosts to advance in Krishna consciousness?
Or there is any example?
Yeah. There's a very nice whole section of Padma Purana called Bhagavad Mahatmya. And in that section, there's a description of two brothers. One becomes a ghost. And the brother, that's the ghost, is suffering like anything. So his brother decides to liberate his ghost brother by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a long narration. It's one of those Puranic long narrations. And his brother, that was bad, died and became a ghost. The circumstances were like that, and he was suffering. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, he was liberated. And the liberation verification was, there's details, but he rose in the sky, and a voice came from the sky, his brother, thanking his brother for liberating him just from reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. The end of that narration was the reciter of the Bhagavatam was asked, how come he got liberated and all the other people that were hearing Bhagavatam didn't get liberated? And the answer was, he was really attentive. So then they said, do it again, we'll be really attentive. This is in Padma Purana about, so hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. That's not the only, but that's certainly an example. There's other examples. It's the chanting of the holy name, for example. And this way, spiritual, because there's soul, and the soul benefit goes to the soul from spiritual sound. So that's how they can be benefited and liberated from not only being in a ghost body, but they saw Vaikuntha Vimana descending and taking this ghost brother to Vaikuntha. That was pretty exciting. So it's hearing, and there's this qualitative with attention, or chanting with attention, small factor, an essential factor. Anything else? Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.